what else have we got to go and see this week?
Women Talking is the new film by Sarah Polley. It is up for 2 Academy Awards, Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Motion Picture of the Year. It is adapted from the 2018 novel by Miriam Taves, which was itself inspired by horrific real-life events that were uncovered in a Mennonite community in Bolivia in 2009. Essentially, the story is that in a cloistered religious community, the women have been suffering in the night sexual assaults that they are told by the men are either the work of demons or ghosts or just wild female imagination. One night, one of the potential victims sees one of the attackers coming in through the window, and the jig is up. A series of men are then taken off to the police station, and the rest of the men go to bail them out. And for a very brief period, the women who have been suffering these assaults for a long time, drugged assaults, suddenly have a 24-hour, 48-hour period in which they have to decide what they are going to do. They have 3 options. They can do nothing, they can stay and fight for change, and fight for their own safety within the community, or they can leave. And what happens in both the novel and in the film, both called Women Talking, is which are described incidentally in the film and by Miriam Taves as an act of female imagination, is they have to conceive a future. They have to imagine what they might do. So there's a hayloft, which kind of becomes like a makeshift courtroom, and the whole thing plays out like, to my mind, a cross between Arthur Miller's play The Crucible and Marlene Gorris's electrifying psychodrama A Question of Silence. So the cast includes Rooney Mara, Judith Ovey, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, Michelle McLeod, Frances McDormand.
Wow.
Ben, I mean, like, it's an extraordinary
The kind of
cast.
actors that you turn up and see in anything, really.
Precisely. And the whole film is essentially the debate about what to do. Now, this may sound like it's going to be, very stagey and very polemical. I've now seen Women Talking 3 times, and the first time I saw it, I liked it. I thought it was, gripping, and the fact that the story has its roots in a real story is kind of, horrifying, but also very engaging. Second time I saw it, I thought, actually, this is really good. This is a really good bit of filmmaking from Sarah Polley, who, of course, made Stories We Tell, which is a really interesting documentary that sort of reveals itself to be not quite what you think it is. I don't want to give the game away, but it's a film about how artifice and reality can become blurred. The third time I saw it, I thought, actually, this is a masterpiece. And I'll tell you what happened during those changes. The first time I saw it, I was just really impressed by the dialogue, by the fact that they are wrestling with matters of life and death. They are matters of gender, matters of self-determination, of religion, of wrestling with the central idea that they are faced with an impossible conundrum, which is that in their religion, the only people that can forgive them are the men who they might be turning their back on. So it's like you have to forgive them, otherwise you'll be cast out of the kingdom of heaven. If you leave the community, when God arrives, how will he know where you are? So there is this complete mismatch between theological, philosophy and what's happening at ground level. And yet they are absolutely determined that what they want is their safety, their religion, which is absolutely part of who they are, and the ability to define their future, despite the fact that they've been brought up in a community in which they cannot read or write. So therefore, Ben Wishaw's character, August, who is a school teacher, is brought in to take the minutes of the meeting. Now, in the novel, it's his voice. It's the minutes of the meeting are the form of the novel. In the film, the narrator that role is passed on to a teenage girl recounting the events. And the more I watched it, and bear in mind I've seen it 3 times, the more I started to think this is a really smart piece of filmmaking for 3 main reasons. Firstly, there are flashbacks, but the flashbacks are used to illuminate the discussions, but not to do more than that. And the atrocities are kept off screen. Secondly, people talking about philosophical ideas may be dry, unless the people who are doing that stuff are doing it in a way in which you are reading in their faces and their expressions and their voices and their mannerisms more than what they are saying. So they are saying one thing, but they are also saying another thing at the same time. And the third thing is that there is a very, very understated, but actually brilliant score by Hilda Gudnadottir, which I was surprised didn't get Oscar nominated, because for a while Variety were talking about it as a possible winner. It is sparse and it is used sparingly, but it is used rather brilliantly. I mentioned that it reminded me of Marlene Garris's Question of Silence. I was also reminded, weirdly enough, because the colour is desaturated.
Yeah,
so
in that little clip which we heard, but also in the studio we watched it, for a moment I thought it was black and white. Yeah.
So the desaturation is really interesting, and the way in which she uses colour and brings it in and takes it out. I mean, at certain points I was even thinking of like The Wizard of Oz, the early scenes in The Wizard of Oz, which is a black and white world, which then gives way to a colour world. There is a kind of suggestion that there is a more full colour world somewhere out there, but you're not in it yet. You may never actually be in it. It may be over the rainbow, which is, But I really found myself on the third viewing thinking, this is so expertly done that I'm not even thinking about the filmmaking. I'm just thinking about how much I'm drawn into the drama. Now, here's what's interesting. Last week, I was saying that I thought The Whale was stagey. I can understand how one might imagine that that was true of Women Talking, particularly since I myself compared it to a stage play with the Arthur Miller thing. But it isn't. It's profoundly cinematic. It's brilliantly written. It's wonderfully played. It raises so many intriguing questions, particularly for somebody like me who has, wrestled with theological issues in a very cod manner, I'm sure, but it's not exclusive. I mean, it's the whole thing about women talking. Oh, well, it's just going to be a film for women in that case. No, absolutely not. It is a film that is about fundamental core issues of your own ability to determine your life. Yes, of course, it's absolutely about gender and feminism, and but it's not. It's not a completely binary film either. There are characters in it who are non-binary, and I think it's a real masterpiece, and I think it's been kind of overlooked somewhat in the same way that Till has. I think it deserves. I mean, it's up for best film, so it hasn't been completely overlooked. But I mean, that is something, obviously. But
yes.
But I think it's a really fine piece. I'd love you to see it because I really want to know what you think of it.
I would. It sounds absolutely intriguing, and it does sound as though it's a must-watch. I wonder where the title came from. The title is a little bit low.
No,
women talking.
Okay,
is that it?
Yes. So there's a moment in the novel in which one of the says, "What's going on? What are you doing there? You're conspiring." No, there's no conspiracy. It's only women talking. The whole point is it's women talking, which is in itself a revolutionary act. One of the first things they learn to do when they're doing anything is they learn to vote. So it's like a kind of the microcosm is into the silence comes the voices of women, and that's why the title. Was that you or me? That's what I'm so sorry. That's why the title is brilliant, because what it says is everything and nothing. On the one hand, it's women talk. It's only women talking, but it's women talking. Stop making a noise, my terrible phone. I'm so apologetic.
That's right. Was it an important message?
No.
Okay.
It's the other half who knows that I'm doing this.
Okay, women talking. Okay, so
yes, that's right. It is a woman texting.
Women texting. It's the slightly futuristic follow-up. Well, I'm intrigued. Yeah. I am definitely intrigued by that. But why would that have got overlooked?
Well, it has. I mean, it hasn't been. It is up for best film, but I think it should have been up for so much more than that. I think one of the problems is, obviously it's an ensemble cast, therefore you can't pick out any individual cast members. I'm just surprised by the Hilda Gudnadottir's score not being nominated.
I'm sure I can hear it on a regular basis.
You can.
On your
you can hear it on
show.
Scarlett's show. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. But please see it because I want to know what you think of it.
Definitely.
And I really apologise for leaving my phone on.
Is it what sort of certification? 15. It was interesting is that the way you were describing it tied it in a little bit to Till in terms of the conscious decision to have the atrocities off camera.
Yes, yeah, but it is a 15 because of the subject matter.
Okay.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.